Bryson,
Danny,
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Today is March 14th, 2023, the 6th episode,
Sixth episode.
and
Big
we
change.
have our first guest.
Oh yeah, we do.
First guest,
You want to introduce
one and
yourself?
only.
Hi, folks. My name is Kelton Chastulik. I am these two's, is that in English? These two, they're college advisor with the high school that they're at. I'm a alum of the high school that they go to. Day to day, I could really be doing a lot, as you both know, meeting with kids, whether it's helping them with their financial aid, talking with parents, talking with counselors. So I run a whole gambit, but my whole life, or at least my professional life, revolves around college. So
Yeah,
that's how life be. That's how it go.
Mm-hmm.
and you went to Princeton, right?
I did. So I did go to Princeton. I'm the first in my family to go to college. So I actually have a twin brother, me and Kyle. They went to college at IUP, and I went to Princeton, studied public affairs. It was a very unique experience, I think, comparative to where we are. You know what Chambersburg is like and what it's like to live there, and to go to a place like Princeton is just very different. But I'm don't get me wrong, I'm very appreciative. I have a Princeton degree, very much.
That's awesome. Okay. What would you say you learned the most about, from college?
Learn the most about.
Yeah.
See, I feel like this is something I try to talk to students a lot about in terms of just when you're 16, 17, 18 years old, you're so short-sighted about this idea of, well, college is going to be like high school, right? And you think about the classes and the academics, but you just don't know what you know. I learned, I think, first and foremost, how to feel confident in my abilities as a person, as a leader, and that really, I think, stood out. I think you could ask any of the teachers that you have that maybe had me. Maybe they'll be nice and they'll be like, yeah, Kelton was smart, he's a good kid. But I don't think that where I am today I would have ever expected, especially as a high schooler. I was lucky to attend Princeton early in the summer. So because I was the first in my family to attend college, Princeton has this program called the Freshman Scholars Institute, and it's a program that allows students from first-gen backgrounds to go to college and live the experience. And for the first time ever in my life, I was around such diversity and different people. I was meeting people from across the world, which was, I think, blew my mind a little bit, being from small-town Chambersburg. And you're sitting there talking to someone from Africa. My roommate was from Africa, and you're just like, wow, I'm so small. It is so small. But in the same way, I had a lot of great mentors and leaders through that program and throughout my 4 years where I just felt like I learned personally the things that I could do and the things I was interested in. Obviously, the academics bring it to itself, but when I think about who I am as a person today, both professionally and personally, I am way different than what I was in high school, in very good ways. As a high schooler, I was very, I wouldn't say snot-nosed, I just was a goof. I was a very big goofball.
So you think it's significant that you came from a smaller place? Could you tell, from your peers?
I think what was most significant was the way that I grew up comparative to some of my peers. So often I'll tell this joke. My first year there, I lived with a quad of guys that I really appreciated and still talk to them once in a while. But the other quad of guys, just to kind of give a disparity of the wealth, one, his family owned the LA Kings and part of the Lakers, right? Mm-hmm. Another kid, he got $15 million for his bar mitzvah. The third kid was dating a supermodel in Atlanta, and the fourth kid's name was literally Cash. The difference in, I think, wealth was so overwhelming. The small town thing, don't get me wrong, but I think it really played the role of just, I thought I knew what having a lot of money was, but I mean, when you're meeting some of these people, money is totally different, and the conversations around wealth and the way in which they interact with people is different. But that, I think coming from a place like Chambersburg stood out a lot. You know, you had, like, I'm thinking of people that in my first year seminars, all of them are from fairly affluent places, urban areas, even suburban areas. Like Bethesda, Maryland is such a, like, oh, we go to Maryland, like, we're from, like, these suburbs and wherever. It's so much different than a place like Chambersburg. So I think so, yeah. I mean, it made me feel different, at least.
Like, they ask you, you're like, where are you from? Like, Pennsylvania, like, Philly.
I would say Chambersburg.
Philly, Pittsburgh, you know, they have these assumptions.
Well, I always said, you know, most people would say, oh, is that near Philadelphia? So I would always explain, Pennsylvania is like Philly on one side, Pittsburgh in the middle, and then farm town down the middle of it. And I always said, like, I'm at the bottom of that farm town. I was very adamant because I do have a lot of friends, again, going back, like I have a lot of friends who they'll claim like Atlanta as their city, but they're from a suburb of Atlanta, right? And I always was adamant, no, I'm from Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. I think partly because like not a lot of my classmates had that experience that I had, the privilege that I had to, you know, attend a place like Princeton. I didn't grow up around that. My parents wanted me to go to college, but they were never in their wildest dreams 5 years later when I first said, hey, I think I want to go to college, would they have ever expected me to go to a place like Princeton? Yeah. So I think that was a big part was, no, like, this is where I'm from, this is who I am. That was, I think, a big part.
I have a question on that. Like, what was your biggest factor of choosing that college?
So for me, choosing schools was very unique. I was an athlete, so I was I was playing football and track at the time. I was looking for schools that would allow me to do both. So when I was doing the recruiting process, I mean, truthfully, all 8 Ivy Leagues had offered me a spot to play football. So, you know, it was really weird in this space where now knowing what I do in my job, like I went to the college advisor when I was here and I said, hey, you know, well, I'm looking at Harvard and Yale and Princeton and Cornell and Penn. Like, her jaw must have just dropped because that conversation doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. For me, it was really just Princeton felt like a place for someone who didn't know exactly what they wanted to do. They had an idea, but didn't know exactly what they wanted to do. It felt like a great place to do that. And athletically, given what I wanted to do to compete at a high level. I think, too, it felt like it wasn't super far away from home, but far enough. I really cared about that and trying to kind of branch away and see new things. Frankly, it was really just like it felt right. I mean, my top 4 schools when I was going through the recruiting process were UPenn, Cornell, Princeton, and West Point, because West Point had offered me a spot to play football. And I had a conversation with now Mrs. Donald. She wasn't Miss Donald then. And she had said to me, you know, like, what do you want to wear on a shirt? And for some reason, that comment like made sense to me. It's funny because, like, my background, I didn't understand the significance of what a Princeton was or a UPenn was. I just thought Princeton sounded good, and it worked out. I say to a lot of people, like, I'm very privileged to have it work out the way it did because I could have totally went and hated my life and it sucked, but I really did. I did enjoy my experience.
So you wouldn't have wanted to pick any other place now that you've already been through it?
I mean, if everything was the same, like same athletics, things like that, perhaps selfishly I would have taken more like athletic visits, especially for track, because I was a pretty good track athlete. So I could have gone to a lot of different places. I always wanted to see what Stanford was like, but the idea of living in a place like California was so foreign to me that at that time that didn't exist. But I don't think so. I mean, it's hard to answer that question because I knew that what I did in college felt perfect for me. But obviously now knowing what I do in this job, like, yeah, I'd love to have looked at other places and could envision. Like, every time we take a college visit, I try to envision myself at that campus, but thinking a place like Princeton, it definitely was the right choice.
So did you say that you went in not knowing what you were going to do?
So I thought I wanted to do economics. Frankly, that was because I heard economics and thought, okay, that's how you make money. Like, money, great. But once I got to campus, I was like, yeah, this is not right. I went in thinking about, like, I really wanted to help people, and just the idea of, I didn't know this at the time, but this idea of serving people, and just, this idea that there's a way in which you can understand the issues of the world through your volunteering and service. And Princeton has this Princeton School of Public and International Affairs that allow me to kind of combine some of my interests there. I kind of knew in the spring of my first year there that I knew that that's what I was going to end up studying. But yeah, when I went in, I knew I had an idea of, like, I don't want to do anything science. I don't want to do anything math. The arts are interesting, but I didn't want to dedicate studying to that. It's going to be something in the social sciences, yeah. Psychology was something I think I might have put down too. I don't remember, honestly. Psychology or economics, those are probably the two.
So what would you say your main goal is? Like, whenever you came here, what was your main goal of becoming a college advisor?
That's a loaded question. So when I was, the process of becoming a college advisor was really interesting for me because COVID was starting to kind of, people were starting to understand the COVID-19 pandemic a little bit better and how to stay safe, but we were still distance learning, we were virtual, things like that. So I really remember my senior spring thinking, like, okay, it's time to find a job. Like, I got to figure out what I'm doing. I'd applied to a program at Princeton called the Cincy program. It's the Scholars of the Nation's Service Institute or something like that. Cincy is the acronym. And basically it's a program where you would do graduate school there. You would get your master's in public affairs, but you would do 1 year, then go to D.C., work in the federal government, and then do another year of school. And I applied and basically was like the last person out. Like, I remember talking to the program director, and he was like, listen, like, we're so sorry. We'd love to accept you, just we can't. And I felt really, like, betrayed about this idea of serving people. So I started to think, and having some conversations with some friends and my family, I think one of the things about Princeton that is a downside is you're around people that are going to make laws. They're going to be change makers. I could be having classes with the one-day president of the United States, right? But a lot of those people don't really understand, like, on the ground, what is it like? So the first thought of me becoming a college advisor was really like, someday, like, I would love to work in education policy and work with people, but I feel like I need to be in a high school to understand that. So as I was looking around at jobs, the college advising corps had come up in a conversation with a career advisor there, and I said, oh, well, I had one of those, and I applied immediately, just thinking, oh, I'll do it. And then in my interview, I basically said, like, I'm not doing this unless you put me in Chambersburg. Like, I will not do this. Because I think part of it was when I was a high school student here, I had a lot of classmates who were brilliant, and you've at least heard me say, like, I think that a lot of kids here are super talented. Talents can range, but it's really just helping students get the right path of information to make their goals. I had a lot of friends who were super talented. I had some friends who were getting recruited to play sports at really elite institutions and ultimately never actually went to college, or at least from my understanding, never went to college. And I think that that's a shame because it was really just a lack of information at that time. I also felt pulled back to Chambersburg because I know the population while I'm from here. I felt like it's a place that gave me a lot. Like, when I think about some of the things that I did at Princeton and the successes I had, the awards I won, yada, 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 it was really because I was like, oh, like, well, that's because I met people in Chambersburg that started and laid the roots, and the teachers I had here, Mr. Unruh, Mrs. Parrott, like, those people, it was like, it just felt right. My thought coming in, truthfully, was, how do I help the kid that's just like me? Maybe from a lower income background, first in a family to go to college. How do I help them? Now, 2 years later, oh my gosh, I mean, I do so much more than just that. I think it's just focus. Like, my main goal when I walk in the school building really is just to be almost like a pillar in the community. Like someone, like I have a lot of kids that come to my office every day that like the one time in the day where they're like, I like being at school and I see Mr. Chastulik. No one calls me Mr. Chastulik, but like I like being here. I think that's a big thing for me now. It's just there's a lot more than just, hey, you're really talented, let's go to college. That I do now.
Yeah. Are you coming back next year, or are you done after this year?
So
I don't know what exactly.
So in my contract is up. So the way that this works, the college advisor role is a contracted position through Franklin and Marshall College. It's a 2-year contract. So it wouldn't have mattered if Joe Schmo was in the position. Like Joe Schmo is leaving after 2 years. So this is my final year. That being said, it's not my final time being connected to Chambersburg. I mean, I feel connected to this place for the rest of my life, even if I was to move across the country, just because in the same way, I think when I first started here, I was like, there's something here in terms of the people and the students I meet with every day. I can't give that up. But it's my last year here as a college advisor.
So like, what's your next step?
Lord knows, I don't know.
What's next for you?
I don't know.
Before you answer that question, what do you want to like leave behind here?
Leave behind? What's my legacy?
Yeah.
I don't think about that because I feel like at the end of the day, I wouldn't say struggle with this, but I've fought with this sometimes talking with staff members here. I think with some of the successes we've had, Danny, I'll use you as an example, right? I think people feel like it's really easy to say, well, Kelton, like, you know, Danny wouldn't be going to this school if you weren't there. And I don't agree with that because sure, would it be fair to say the process would have been harder? Sure, we can say that. But at the end of the day, and this is the same with every student who ends up going to college. It's not just you or Bryson. You are talented enough. You just needed pointed in the right direction. Mm-hmm. So I've been asked that question before in terms of like, what do you want to leave? I think first and foremost, like me moving in this office was a huge deal last year. I mean, you remember where I was last year.
That place.
Right. The little closet that I had that was away from everybody.
Yeah.
If anything, this space staying as a college-related space is really important to me, just because I think it has made whomever is advising students or just college-related, like it's made their lives a lot easier. And it's just, a space that is welcoming to students. I wish I had like a counter because I probably have 25, 30 different students that come into my space every day. Yeah. And this is their space. So that's first. I don't know. I don't like to think in the way of, you did such great work, Kelton. What is going to be your shining armor? Or what are you going to be remembered for? Because ultimately what I want to be remembered for is what the kids did. Like, look, all these kids got these great opportunities, and in 4 years they're going to graduate. Like, I guess my legacy is hopefully in 4 years when you all are graduating college, I get a lot of invitations to grad parties. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah.
And you do a lot of data tracking, right? So.
Oh, it's absurd, the amount of data that I have to track in terms of just my eyes are in an Excel sheet every day, if not multiple times a day, yeah.
Why is that important to you?
The data tracking?
Yeah.
Well, I think just because of how large the school is. It's also a hard line to walk. Like, if I had 100 kids I was working with, yes, I'd be tracking data because I would like to know, okay, where are students going to apply to college? What are scholarships they're getting? And then being able to track all of that just to keep and kind of what's happening. But with a school this large, I have to, just to have an idea, like, okay, I heard from Sally Sue that, you know, they have applied to college, but they have never filed their FAFSA. And I can track that and say, all right, to meet the needs that you have, your financial needs, we have to do the FAFSA. I think it's just the size of the school. Also, my organization tracks that. So in my contract, we have what we call key performance indicators. And it's a way for us to track kind of the success we have in our schools and the way we're building a college-going culture. So, you know, however many students complete an application or however many students finish the FAFSA is a good way of tracking to them, you know, what the college-going culture is in the building, or at least what our role is. And you can track the growth of that. So you can take an advisor 10 years ago how many applications have been done, how many FAFSA have been done, and then look at my data 10 years later and say, okay, what's happened here? Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's next for you then?
I don't know. I mean, truthfully, I want to help. I still want to help people. Like, I still really care about serving people.
Could you like get another contract at a different like school or something, or how's that work?
I don't know if I want to work in public schools.
You don't want to?
Well, if I'm very frank, the living that I do currently is not my best life. Let's just say that. I mean, I love working with this age group of students, 16, 17, 18, college age students, just because again, when you think about potential, like, oh, there's just so much you could do, right? So it's really figuring that out, but
Do you want to be advising college students next?
maybe that's what I've thought. I've thought about looking at some jobs in that realm, but I'm not sure. Really like to help students. I think I'd like to believe I have a lot of skills mentoring people and talking to this age group, so I'd like to use those skills, but at the end of the day, whatever it is, it's going to be about helping people. Like, truthfully, I know that sounds so silly, but it's just what I really like to do, and I think my values are I want to serve people, and I want a role that's going to help me serve people. That's a big long answer of I don't know. I really don't.
Yeah. Well, we can like move away from the personal side of things if that's all right.
That's fine.
So, I have a few questions about college in general, like for like other people that might need to hear it. Like, what makes college so important, or like, is it important?
I think that's a question that's getting asked a lot right now. I think especially thinking of our home community, right?
Mm-hmm.
You talk to so many kids who are like, I don't care. I'm going to the welding. Leave me alone, right? But at the end of the day, let's say you do go into the welding profession, right? You work real hard for 20 years, and then your body's beat up. And I see, and not everyone is going to go through that, but like I use anecdotes. My father has worked in construction his entire life, and he's 55, and he is always complaining about aching and hurting every single day, right? And I respect him. I love him. I'm glad that he made the sacrifices he did for me, but that's not a great life to live, right? Because you want to be able to enjoy some of this other stuff. Mm-hmm. So oftentimes when I talk to students, especially students who are interested in entering trades or things like that, they'll come to me and they'll be, especially at the magnet school where I'm meeting a lot of tech students, they'll come in and they'll be like, oh God, I got to meet this guy. And they're like, well, I think I want to go weld. And I'm like, cool. And there's just this weight of like, wait, you're a college guy. Like, why are we not talking about college? And I mean, I think it really depends on the person, depending on if it's important, right? Like, yeah, if you like working with your hands and want to work in construction for the rest of your life, then no, college is not important for you. But that's a specific type of person. I talk to kids every day who are like, like I really just talking to my friends and helping people. Then perhaps wielding a hammer for the rest of your life is not a good idea. So it really depends on the type of person. When I think about, why is it important? You said, why is it important? Is it important?
Yeah.
Research still tells us that people who get a bachelor's degree tend to earn more than those with high school diplomas. It's just a fact. The numbers are going to range depending on what you study, but, I think I've read research that have said, male graduates earn almost $650,000 more than high school diplomas. Males that have high school diplomas, and that $650,000 is really important because that affects the life you live, the house you can live in or buy, the car you can buy, the travel and vacations you have, the hobbies you can spend on, right? And I think it's really easy to think about it from this realm of, you want to get the best job ever. Yeah, sure. I'd love for that for you. But also, I want you to have a good life and enjoy moments and, be able to spend some money to hang out with your friends when you're an adult. That's what matters, I think, most to me. Maybe it's because I'm 23 and I'm starting to realize some of that. But, what I don't want is for you to enter a job you don't like, you don't have enough money to do the things you want to do, right? And then ultimately it's hard on your life. And that's why I think college is important, because it gives you more opportunities to find spaces, especially that keyword opportunity, right? Because again, a student that comes to me and says, I want to weld for the rest of my life, or I want to do this trade, or I just want to work. That's fine. I want you to understand what that is and what maybe you're leaving on the table, but I'm your advisor. I'm not your decision maker, right? I will advise you and provide you the information, but it's not my job to make your decision or tell you what to do.
Yeah. So if you think college is important, why would they make college so expensive?
I couldn't answer that question. I mean, it depends on the schools. I mean, truthfully, in the state of Pennsylvania, college is really expensive. Even your state schools are very expensive. It's just a fact. When you look at other public institutions at other states, those state schools are not nearly as expensive for those in-state students. I always go back to students in terms of return on investment. This idea that at some point in your life, in your career, you're going to invest. Right now, I pull back from my senior thesis on this, because students, when they're faced with the decision, do I go to college or not, oftentimes what they're making a decision on is this worth my time, right? But high school students are very short-sighted. So they're thinking, well, I'm going to go to college and put $30,000 down in loans. Well, that doesn't seem like a lot of my time, but you got to recognize that decision has an effect over 40 years, right? And so the idea has to be, what am I getting in return? So oftentimes I'll have a conversation with students who are unsure about what they want to do, and I say, well, get an associate's degree, right? Let's say you want to work in the healthcare field. You could be I'm trying to think of the careers. You could be an aide assistant or personal care aide and make, let's say, $35,000, right? Just high school diploma, right? Great job outlook, right? Or you could be an occupational therapy assistant, right? Just get 2 years of training, right? Go get an associate's degree, make $62,000 a year, right? That associate's degree, let's say you're going to hack, is going to cost you $14,000, right? First off, there's a $30,000 difference in just the initial salary, but again, that compounds over time, right? So I'm doing presentations right now in junior classrooms where I'm saying, look, again, that's a difference of almost $900,000 if you work to your 65. Trust me, I don't wake up every day thinking, let's put these kids in $200,000 in debt. I don't want to do that. That's not fun.
But do you believe that it's inflated, the cost?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It has to be. And I think certain institutions want to inflate their costs. It looks good, right? Even my institution, do I think my Princeton degree is worth $75,000 a year? Well, or maybe that's not a good idea. But do I think that some of these degrees are worth that much? No. But it's almost a status symbol, right? And a lot of schools do it because then it's a marketing tactic. Well, our tuition's $75,000, but we're giving you $40,000 in scholarships. Right, and that sounds great, right? But you're still paying $35,000 for tuition. Every student gets $40,000, right? That's a huge generalization, but that's really what it is, right? That's kind of how that's set up, and so that's what happens is then you get students who are like, yeah, I just got $40,000 from this school. This is great. When what they really should be doing is looking at all their options and saying, okay, what is the final cost? I'll be honest. This year, when I have had the chance to work with students, I don't think when I've worked with students, and when I say we've sat down, I said, hey, these are a good list of schools to apply to. They've gotten into said schools. We sat down. We talked about the financial aid letters. They did their FAFSA. They did their state grant. Truthfully, I don't think I've had a student that's chosen an option that's cost them more than $15,000 a year. Yeah. And that's a good investment. That's the return on investment portion. Now, the sad part is not every school has a college advisor. And as you hear me say every single day, there's one of me for a bazillion of you. So I haven't had the chance to work with every student. And it pains me for those students that they come in and I made a commitment and I'm spending $30,000 a year. Those are the tough ones. it is worth the investment. At least I think. Now, again, given your interests, right? If you're, I want to work with my hands, then why would I tell you to get a 4-year degree? You don't need to make that investment. Maybe get an associate's degree. You might want to make that investment, right? Or get, short-term certification. Yeah, that might be a good investment, but it's all in ranges.
Yeah, because a lot of what scares people away from college is the cost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like, what would you say would be like the best thing, like, for them, so they wouldn't have to worry about the cost? You just think scholarships?
So at first, it's going to depend, right? So let's use a me in this example, right? So, and I'm not going to say, like, my parents weren't dirt poor. They were working class. Like I said, my father's very blue collar. My family at the time I was applying to college was making about, I think, 65 to 70K. So, above what we would call mid-range, right? But I was also a very high-achieving student. So that's why when I first, like, one of the first things, honestly, that I prioritize, like, I'll get into the school year and I meet with my top achievers first, because then I want to pick out and say, okay, which of these students are high-achieving but maybe higher income, and which of these students are lower income, right? Because then those students, I'm going to say, all right, we need to talk. Here's all these opportunities, like a place like Princeton, which allowed me to graduate debt-free, because even though my family made X amount of money, Princeton saw that as lower income. Here's all your tuition, here's all your room, here's all your board, right? So, that's a very select group of students, of course. For a lot of low-income students, it's about doing their federal aid. Let's say a student applies to Shippensburg, let's use them, and tuition there is about $12,000, $13,000. They do their federal, let's say they've got a 3.9, so they're getting a $2,500 scholarship. So right there, that cuts them down to about $11,000. If they're doing the FAFSA and they're full Pell, right, they receive a full Pell Grant, they're almost cutting that number down from $11,000 to almost $4,000, $5,000, right? $5,000 is a lot different than $11,000, right? So I think it's just trusting the process a little bit. Don't get me wrong, I think there needs to be more, like, if I'm the United States president today, like, the first thing I'm doing is expanding some of those opportunities for students. But at the end of the day, there are opportunities. If you're a student who's like, this is going to be really expensive, this can be. Now, let's say you're a middle-class student, right? And the schools you've applied to aren't offering the same type of aid. You didn't get any federal aid. Scholarships are available. But that's, again, the time where we want to sit and talk about what is the investment that you're making, right? Let's say, like, I talk to a lot of students who want to be doctors. Well, you're going to be doing schooling for 7 to 8 years. Sometimes students are like, yeah, I don't care about loans. I'm going to go to schooling for 8 years or however long you need to become a doctor, right? And then they're like, oh, whatever, right? But then sometimes I tell students, hey, let's cut down your finances as low as possible right now, because we don't want you to do that. Again, yeah, it does depend on the student, but scholarships are available. Talking to your financial aid counselors are available. They ultimately get in the profession to help people. And sometimes I know when, like, oh, I didn't get the financial aid offer I want, you're like, oh, it's those freaking financial aid counselors. But, like, they do the profession because they want to help people. Like, that's why they do it. And ultimately, if you're in a situation where financially it doesn't make the best sense, you can always transfer. I'm a huge proponent of community college and things like that, because especially, like, Hack is so affordable. Like, you can get a 2-year degree for less than I pay for my car, like, as a car loan, right? And I don't drive, like, a Camaro. Like, I drive a mom car. Like, I don't have a nice car. You can get a nice, like, a great return on investment. But, again, that gets lost in this idea, like, you hear, I think, as a common trope of, oh, we don't have enough people doing trades and this and that. Well, no, I think we don't have enough people getting associate's degrees, right? You can get an associate's degree in almost anything, right? The same people that want to get a bachelor's degree in psychology can get an associate's degree in psychology and can do a lot of things with that degree. It's just the framework and the conversations we're having have to change, and they have to happen earlier, right? Like, when we're talking to students about their futures in 8th grade and 9th grade, we have to start changing the conversations we have. Because Hack is affordable. $15,000 for a 2-year degree is affordable. I know it doesn't sound like it right off the rip, but again, if you're a full Pell student, you're almost getting everything paid for just off of Pell.
Yeah.
Mean a lot of acronyms, sorry.
So, like, Do you think like you're better off to go to college or just go right into the workforce, or does it all depend?
I don't want to say it all depends because I've said it a couple of times. I mean, it is really on that return on investment scale. So, like, I've pulled up graphs. I don't know if I've ever done this with you. I've done this with some students where I will literally say, okay, what do you want to do, right? And with a high school diploma, this could be your year earnings, and it'll be one line on a graph. And then I'm like, okay, let's say you get an associate's degree in this, and then you get this job. This is what you earn, right? And normally that line is a little higher, right? Well, let's say you get a bachelor's degree, and then you say, okay, well, then that line's maybe a little bit higher. The difference, though, is the time right off the bat that you get, right? So, again, it really goes back to that return on investment. Like, what am I paying?
Over time.
Yeah, what am I paying? The loan payments over time. And what do I make, right? I think, too, like, I know I'm talking a lot about finances, but I also think there's this really important social aspect about college that we don't talk about a lot. And not in the whole, like, hey, let's go party. It goes back to, we were talking about, like, what did I learn in college? I think maybe you would have expected me to say something academic or whatever, but, like, truthfully, like, I felt like I really found a Kelton that could speak and be a leader. Like, I have a lot of awards that hang up in my office, and truthfully, if you would have told me in high school, like, yeah, I'm going to, be recognized as the one senior who represents the Princeton's informal motto, I would have laughed because I've been like, what is Princeton's? I didn't even know the motto at the point. And so I think that's a big part of college is there's a social spaces that will allow you to, not to be the cliche, but to help you find yourself and navigate, do the things you want to do, continue hobbies, continue sports, whatever it is that, mean a lot. And mean a lot after college. I still keep in touch with a lot of my track buddies from college, and the joke of, oh, well, you have a Princeton degree, you can get a job for the rest of your life. Well, a huge part of that isn't necessarily that I have a degree from Princeton and I'm a Princeton man. It's, well, I know people from Princeton and they know what that experience is like, and I have those interactions. I think it's a huge thing. You don't get that when you go straight to work. Now you can make friends. You can go to the bar every Friday, make friends. And yeah, absolutely, right? Go to the gym, make friends. But college, like, if we can be really, like, 40 feet above, like, college is made for kids to get to know each other, right? I think that's a really cool thing and something that has to be considered a little bit more. Don't get me wrong, like, you could be making a really high investment. Like, don't pay $30,000 just to get to meet people. That's a terrible idea. But that's another aspect that I ask students to think about when they're looking at their college choices.
Yeah. I had a question, but I said it just left.
It just left your question.
Left.
So, like, what would you say would be, like, the one thing that, like, could have held you back, like, out of everything?
Held me back out of college?
Yeah.
I think that's a good question because, like, I think a lot of teachers, wow, that's going to be on your recording, just letting you know. Like, a lot of teachers, I wouldn't say a lot, but I've had some teachers who know me and know my experience. Again, I don't want to make it sound like, oh, I had a really rough experience, but, every research study that I read when I was studying education policy at Princeton, like, marked me as a kid who should not be at Princeton. Like, I thought that, like, I want to make that very clear. I was not in the income bracket that should be there. I did not have the formal education that most people had there. My parents did not work jobs that Princeton students' parents do, right? Like, that. I want to make that really clear. I really do chalk it up to luck. Like, at that time, I had no one around here that knew, oh, well, your athletics make it easier to get into a place like Princeton. And, I didn't have that. So I think it was really luck. I think it was a lot of effort. Like, when I was in high school, I was the annoying kid that would email coaches as a sophomore, right? And I would sit in business law class. Poor Mr. Davis, he's not here anymore. But, like, I would sit in business law, and I'd say, okay, I'm going to email 30 coaches today. And what I would do is say, okay, give me the top 30 schools. All right, where's all the coaches, track coaches from those schools? Who are all the football coaches from the schools? And I didn't say, oh, well, Like I'm this athlete, here's my film, here's my shot put mark, my discus mark, I have this GPA. I'd love to learn more about your school. And I think me doing that unknowingly, I think like I just did that knowing like, oh, emails and all that stuff is good, really helped me. I don't think if Princeton track is a little weird because I never really reached out to Princeton track. They reached out to me, but I think that helped me a lot. I think I would have never been as highly recruited if I didn't do that work. But it's also really easy because I'm privileged because of the fact that, I did have parents who supported my efforts. And even though they didn't go to college, they said, look, yeah, we'll support everything you do. And, did drive me to places. And I think that's a huge thing that I see with a lot of students who, not saying their parents don't support their decisions, but, if a parent can't take the day to drive with a student to a college, that ends up hurting them, right? And that's, I think, that's a lot larger of a discussion, but it does make a difference. For me, like I had a lot of really important mentors here in the high school who looked out for my best interests and wanted to know more. And I can remember when I had applied to Princeton and after I'd gotten in, reading one of my teacher's letters of recommendation and just being like, wow, you think that of me, right? So I think I also had the luck of just making really good relationships with people here. Yeah. I think some teachers would probably look back and say, well, no, that was because you did this, this, and this. But every student, some students come in here and it just automatically, it's like that. Like they just don't get along with anyone. I feel like it was really, like I said, I had a really big privilege of having things kind of fall in line.
So you say that your classmates, like you knew some of them that were bright, but didn't have the right direction. But how did you know? Like,
I think
you go about the college process.
I think for me, college was one of those things that not at a young age, like not at 5, but when I started getting into middle school, my parents were like, listen, like you need to go. I think my mom would tell you this. She would be pretty straight up in saying like, we struggle growing up. I think we had our challenges with money at times, especially when I was younger. We lived in paycheck to paycheck, and my parents, I think, attributed that to not getting a college degree and not having those opportunities. And so for me, that laid upon me, maybe this college thing is really important. I will also say one of the things that I think changed about me when I went to college, like when I left Chambersburg, I said, I'm never, ever coming back. Like I'm done with this place. And I think I was really short-sighted as a student because I thought one thing of this place when realistically it's a much more colored picture than it's not black and white in terms of the people that live here and the ideas that people have and what have you, right? As a high school student, I was a little naive. So I think those two things, like my parents saying, no, you really should do this, right? And they didn't do anything for me. Like I did all my financial aid stuff. I set up most of my visits. They drove me places. Like we did go, they would drive me. Like we drove to Cornell, we drove to UPenn, places like that. So I'm very, thank you, Mom and Dad. But at the end of the day, like I did everything for myself. Like I said, I met my college advisor. The only time I met with my college advisor was to say, hey, college advisor, I have the 4 of the most selective schools in the country that I have the ability to go to. Which should I choose? Right? Which is really funny because like that's stupid. So I think it's just those two things of like being really supported to do it and also really wanting to get the heck out of here. Yeah. I really did not want to be here when I was a senior. I remember counting down the days to get out of Chambersburg.
Yeah, I've gotten a little senioritis in the past couple of weeks, and it's been a little rough, but...
Well, don't tell an educator professional that way. I mean, it's also... I think it's also, like... I really wanted to see more. Like, when I actually got accepted, because I'll be honest, like... I thought it was a joke when they told me that I was going to go. Like, I really did. I had to actually read the acceptance letter. I remember, I don't know if I ever told you this. I actually read my acceptance letter in Mr. Andrews' class.
You told me this.
Yeah, so what happens in athletics at that level, basically I committed to Princeton, I think, in maybe early October, still in the football season. So maybe, it might have been October. And what you do is you kind of you submit some information, you put down, like you basically hand in your application, and what they do is they do a pre-read. And off of that application pre-read, they'll kind of give you an idea as to maybe you need to change some things, or hey, academically you're just not going to make it here. And so they said yes, it's likely you'll be admitted. But again, because no one ever here had said, oh, this is how this works, I was like, okay, sure. But I'm not counting my chickens before they hatch. Like, I want to make sure this is right. So I remember it was in December. It would have been December 15th probably, and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna read this here. Like, I want to get this done, and I pulled it up under Smartboard, and I don't even think he was here. I just said, hey, can I stay here and wait? Because I didn't have I would have had like a Chromebook at home, but I just wanted to get it done. And so, yeah, it was kind of what it was just kind of finding out. I think that was off topic. What was the question?
The question?
I forget.
I don't know what was
I was just talking.
Did I ask?
How did that feel though?
What?
What did that make you feel whenever you got accepted?
Yeah, you told me.
And
I
got
don't
in?
know. I mean, like, it was just like,
You didn't feel good about it?
I kind of opened it, said, okay, cool, this is real, and then went to practice. I mean, truthfully, I think if that gives you any idea of the type of person I am, my graduation at Princeton, now COVID played a role in this, but like, we did the graduation ceremony. I got pictures with my family and my girlfriend, and we were in the car. There was another girl in my class here at Cassius that went to Princeton. I think Emma was our salutatorian. And she had called me. We were literally in the truck about to leave. Like, I had everything already packed up. We were ready to leave to go back to Chambersburg because I was ready to come home. And she calls me and she says, hey, like, where are you? I'd love to get a picture. And I'm like, I'm literally, like, about to leave. Right? Like, I didn't think much about the sentimental value in that. It was funny. My dad actually framed my acceptance letter. I didn't even know that he did. Don't get me wrong. When I look back on it, it's a great thing, but it's a weird thing. I'm definitely like, I've had students ask me like, oh, well, you went to Princeton. Of course you can feel some type of way, but I don't think about it that way. I think it's an immense privilege, but at the same time, when I work with students, I look at it as any other option. I look at it with high dignity because of the financial aid, because I know that for a kid like me in my situation, like going to college for free generally is awesome, but it's just that much more like, oh, I now have this degree, right? Does that make sense? I mean, it's more, I don't know. I think I was like, yay, all right, time to go to practice. Like, I actually think that's what happened. I was like, all right, let's go. I was also really dedicated to track, and, I was a top 20 thrower in the nation. Like, I was really doing my thing, and so I was like, all right, let's go. Kind of on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm. What like things would you say that are important to take to college with you? Like for students that are about to go to college.
Take with you.
I know, like,
I can tell you what not to take. Don't bring a candle. Don't bring a microwave.
Don't bring a microwave.
Don't bring a microwave. You don't need a microwave because there will be a kitchen somewhere you can use a microwave there.
I thought you were supposed to take a mini microwave.
Well, it depends where you go, but you can. Like, at Princeton, like, there was kitchens there that you could just use a microwave. Obviously, the, like, bedding and stuff. I was horrible at packing for college. It was the worst. Like, I remember when we first got up there. Again, I wanted to leave so badly. So the night before, I had everything packed. I filled the car up. And so it was just like, all right, let's get in the car and go. And it was so inefficient. And I never really got better at packing because of COVID. Like, basically, my senior year, I got to be there my senior spring. And I had my own mattress and everything because of living on my own for basically a year. So I took all of it with me. And, we had a U-Haul and a truck. And people were moving in with, like, 2 suitcases. So what do you need to bring? Bedding. I would say bring something that's really important to you. That's something I did. I brought my yearbook, weirdly enough, because I like looking back at the people who signed it, and it was always nice to kind of look at that a little bit. A lot of pens. I mean, you will realize when you get to college, a lot of the stuff you bring is not important, but all your utilities, your toothbrush, your shampoo. Please don't not shower. Things like that.
How would you say your time management was in college? Did you manage it well, or?
I thought it was good time management. That's that whole thing about IB. Oh, you'll be in the IB program, you get great time management. Yeah, I hear you. Right? I think the thing about college that was interesting, I tell this to a lot of kids, you're going to get there, and for the first time maybe ever in your life, you'll be like, oh my gosh, I could stay up with all these people till 3 a.m. and just talk. This is cool. Right? But then you have an exam, or you have a paper due the next day, right? So for me, one of the things that I had to recognize, also as a Division I athlete, and navigating that load, was my day. Let's use the day of my junior year, because this is when I thought I was really in the slot. I would wake up around 5 a.m. I'd get up, I'd take a shower, probably come back to my room around 5:30. Depending, I'd like to take long showers, so I didn't pay the water bill, so I didn't care. I'm a menace to society. It's okay. I would then do homework for, let's say I got up, I would stretch. I would listen to the news maybe. I would, put a podcast on or whatever. And then I would do homework basically up until breakfast. So let's say it's 6 to 7:30, which I mostly could get a lot of homework done within an hour and a half because I had no one distracting me. I was an RA my junior year, so, I had 12 kids to look after and mentor and advise. So, I knew no student was coming to me at 6 a.m., so that was kind of my time. I would go get breakfast around 7:30. I would eat probably till 8:15, and then depending on my class schedule, would make kind of the decision. If I didn't have a class, at 9 or 10, then I would go to the library and do work. My junior year, would actually do work a week in advance. So let's say we're on week 3, I would be doing week 4's work. So that way when week 4 came in, we had lectures and stuff. I'd be like, oh, okay, I already know all this stuff. This all makes sense. So I can build something off of it. I would get ahead on studying, things like that. I also I was juggling a lot of projects, right? So the book drive, I was juggling, Champions Went to College, I was juggling, right? Some of that stuff. Then class, let's say I have class 10 to 11, 20. Then I would eat lunch, maybe class again at 1 to 2, and then I'd go down to the track and maybe do a little more homework, or I would hang out with some friends. Then maybe practice was anywhere between 3 to 7:30, anywhere in that time block. It doesn't have to be the full time block. And then at night I would, check up with my friends or, students I had. So it was kind of a range of things. But, I front-loaded a lot of work. When I first got to Princeton, I definitely didn't do that. I was definitely working at 1 a.m. I highly recommend not doing that because your sleep is important. You will die.
You will die.
Yeah, literally. Literally, you will die if you don't sleep and take care of yourself.
But you do... So in college, you do have to hold yourself more accountable than in high school. Right?
I mean...
That's what all of our teachers say.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you, hot take. Now...
Is that true?
Hot take. I think college for me was easier than high school. Truthfully. And I think it was because I was doing so much in high school. My high school day-to-day, I was getting up at 4:30 to go to the gym at 5, and then, try to get an hour and a half lift in, then come home and shower and eat, then take me and my brother, I would drop my sister off at middle school, then I'd go to the high school, and then you do class from, 7:45 to 3, and then I'm practicing from 3 to 5:30, and then maybe I worked a job in high school, so maybe I had work from 6 to 8 or 6 to 9, and after 9 I'm doing homework, and then I still want to talk to my friends or talk to my girl. That time is just way different than in college. That being said, if you're not that type of person, then yeah, I definitely think it's harder because you have so much freedom, right? You don't have to, truly, you could go your first year and never step into class. I don't recommend doing that. But like microeconomics for me, I remember the lecture. It's one of the first weeks we talked about utility. Utility being the amount of happiness that you get. And we were talking about, like, some people in economics, they believe in this idea that you should be utilitarian. You should do whatever gives you the most happiness. And he's like, look, if coming to this lecture doesn't give you the most happiness, then you should not come. I don't think I went to a single lecture after that day. I did everything. I went to the precepts and stuff and learned on my own and walked at the notes and was doing some of the studying on my own. But, yeah, you could totally skip lectures for the rest of the year, right? No one's, like, if your attendance isn't graded, then who cares, right? Now, I don't recommend doing that. You are going to fail if you do that, right? Yeah. That's the accountability part. It's like, why am I here? And am I doing the things that are allowing me to do that, right? Again, I think college is a great time to be yourself and learn and do the things you want. But you do want a degree. Like, that's kind of the mix of the whole, like, the financial portion of it, but the social portion of it. Like, those two things have to coexist in a way that is going to be best equated for you. You can't go to college and do all the social stuff and not do the academic stuff, but I don't think you should go to college and do all the academic stuff and do none of the social stuff. You have to find a good balance.
So you were in the IB program during high school or no?
We were I was in the first group of IB students.
So how would you say the workload from college is compared to high school here? Do you think it's like a lot more? Or?
I think it's different. I think it's a lot different. I don't want to say it's more or less. So, like in high school, you're doing homework every night, right? Let's say you have a class and you're going to, like, you can think of a class where you have an assignment every day, right? Right? College is not like that. You'll have some classes where literally your grade is attendance is 20%, midterm exam is 40%, final exam is 40%. And that's it, right? There are assignments that you will do. So, like, that's not the best example, but let's say some of your, like, weekly posts are assignments, right? There's 20%, midterm 40, final 40. And those are classes. Like, that's how classes can be, right? You can do those weekly posts every day on a Sunday. Like, I used to actually set it up that I would have days where I would do certain work. So, outside of the Spanish classes that I took there, I had no classes where I had to do something every single day. So, like, let's say, I had poll stats where I had to do a problem set. I would work on that problem set every Tuesday and Wednesday. It was due Friday, right? I'd try to finish it by Wednesday. And if I didn't, I would, it would give me enough time to try to finish and talk with friends and try to figure out, how do I complete this? Let's say I was in a literature course. Well, I know I have to read a book every week. My big reading days are Saturday and Sunday, right? Let's say I'm in more of like a politics class and I have to do a weekly post.
Every week?
Oh, yeah, that's pretty normal. Yeah. I was probably doing 2 or 3 books a week in my classes in total. Okay. Yeah.
Danny's like, hey.
Keep going.
No, I mean, I think it's, probably. I mean,
every week.
Yeah. You don't read the whole book, but it was, yeah.
So they would, like, do you think, like, most of your homework was, like, they would, like, give you your homework and then you had to do it, like, you had a whole week to complete it?
Yeah, basically. So that's what I was talking about when I was talking about, like, working a week ahead.
Yeah.
I would actually, like, complete an assignment before it was ever given out. You know what it is, right? If a syllabus is giving you know what the assignment's going to be, I would get it done. So I knew that, all right, it's done.
And your classes don't meet every single day, right?
No. So depending on the types of classes. So I remember, like, my senior spring, I had 3 classes. One because I took of interest. I didn't have to take it. That class meant Fridays from 1 to 4:30. That was it. The only time. The other class meant Wednesdays, 1 to 4:30. That was it. And then the other class was Tuesday and Wednesday, 10 to 11:20. And then I had a precept, which is like a small group. That was like Thursdays. Right? But you can think, like, I had, in total of class time, those 2 seminars were 6 hours total. Then the lecture was an hour, almost an hour and 20, so 2 hours, 40 minutes, and then an hour. So, less than 10 hours of class a week. How many hours of class do you do a day here?
Nearly 40.
Well, yeah, nearly 40 a week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right, because 8 to 3 is, what, 2, I'm not good at math, 4, 7 hours?
6.
8 to 3?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, 8 to 3.
6 hours?
7.
Yeah, 7 hours.
7.
35.
Yeah.
35.
So you're doing 3.5 times more class in high school. Plus you have an assignment every day.
Yeah.
And
Right.
it's 7 classes, right?
Yeah, and it's 7 classes opposed
Per
to
day.
normal class schedule, at least at Princeton, was about 4 or 5.
Oh, well.
Yeah,
That's
so
not even that bad.
yeah. That's why I say, like, I tell kids all the time when they say, oh, well, I'm tired of school. It's like, well, college is not, it's not like high school. It's not. Like, trust me, like, listen, you're going to contact me a year from now. I don't know how you will. Somehow you will. I'll give you my phone number when you graduate. You'll contact me and be, man, this stuff's easy. This is way different than high school. This is easy, right?
Yeah.
Even though a lot of, like, you've been training your mind to think, oh, well, this is going to be really hard, and some of this stuff isn't going to fly in college, right? But at the end of the day, like, you're making an investment, and the professors know that, and they know you're trying your best. As long as you're trying your best, you do fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's that aspect, right? That if college is easy, then you're wasting your time.
No. I mean, I learned a
You
lot.
do understand how people think that.
Yeah, but I don't think a lot of people think college is easy. I don't like that's why I said it's a hot take, because like even my teachers are like, "Are you sure, dude? Like, you did go to a really great institution." But no, I said that there. I wholeheartedly think high school is harder.
Well, some people don't like pack out their schedules and make their schedules hard.
Yeah,
Like
so
some people are like lazy. Their senior years like only have like 3 classes a day.
it really
then
depends.
When they go to college, it might be a little harder for them.
It definitely depends, but I think like that plus, you really have to understand that. Like college is one of those things at the end of the day where I'm just like, go do it, and you'll understand, right? And you'll come back. Listen, this will happen. I don't think I'll be here, but you'll come back and you'll see Mr. Unruh, and you'll be like, man, I'm so different of a person. Like after fall break, and be like, yeah, here, yeah, right. Like it just happens. That's how it is. And so that's kind of the thing with college, that I think it's one of those things where, from my own personal experience, like it's so worth the investment, and you get the opportunity to do these things. Why not try it? Go after it, right? And then after a year, if you don't like it, fine, drop out. You at least got some college, like you can put that on the diploma. You had some college experience. Great.
Yeah.
Do you have more questions left?
No,
That's all of them.
yeah, and
Yeah, we're out.
I think we're pretty good on time. So
And the printer comes in.
Printer said, I'm gonna print. Printer said, we're printing now.
Well,
That was what topic was this? This was college.
college.
We moved
I think
locations.
that's pretty good.
Thought it was gonna be a lot of a personal conversation. This was interesting, boys.
Right.
I enjoyed my
I
time.
enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it too. But we ended up moving in here because it's like super cold out.
Yeah, it's like
super windy.
negative 20 degrees. The wind chill is like
20.
negative 40 degrees. We live in Antarctica. We be living out in the Polar Express. I saw a penguin when I was walking in this building. That's how it was.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Thanks for being our first
Thank you.
guest.
It was an honor.
This
I will
should be
look
an
back
honor.
on this when I get Miami in 40 years and say this is where my start was. My on-camera debut.
oh yeah.